Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week is going to be the turn from, it's California. This is the Pandoras, who I spoke to one of the members very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry. That is Melanie Vammen, keyboard player and guitarist, who went on to work or form the Muffs as well, and has been in lots of other bands. So you'll find out more about Melanie and her incredible career throughout the interview. So I won't spoil it anymore. Let's get right down to it. So basically, after several minutes of casual chat, I got down to that very exciting subject that was the early formative years. It's a classic, I know. Anyway, Melanie, it's over to you.
I remember getting my first, I was pretty young. I bought some Beatles albums at a garage sale, and I made a little makeshift clubhouse in my backyard, and I had a little tiny record player, and I took it out and kept spinning the records, and I really remember that was like the first time just like really loving music so much and listening to the same records over and over and over again. And then later on I got into the Monkees, and I was into rock stuff too. I had like a Led Zeppelin album. I loved Cheap Trick. And then I just really got in high school. I was really lucky because I had a really cool mom, and she let me go out. I lived in Orange County at the time, and I was 15, and I got to go up to LA and go out to clubs, even though I wasn't old enough to even be in the clubs.
Right.
I got in the clubs, and that's how I really got involved in like the 60s garage scene. I was about 15 and a half then.
Blimey, you had very liberal parents, didn't you? Were they quite bohemian?
No, I mean, the thing with my mom, she was an artist. She painted and she would write, but she was a high school teacher. She was a business teacher, but she was always really young, and she was like almost the same age as her college or her high school students, and so she kind of would hang out with them, and like she had a cool Impala, and they would like have her go race it like on the drag strip and stuff. Wow. I don't know. She was cool. She said, go do that. Be who I want to be. I got to dye my hair. Like there were no really restrictions put on me. Yeah. Dyed my hair back, and got to like I got into that whole 60s thing, and I got go-go boots, and I'd show up at high school wearing that, and people would make fun of me and my friends in high school, but little did they know we had amazing taste in music.
Yes, absolutely. So was it people like, because there was that compilation called Nuggets, which had people like, I don't know, is it the Sonics and such bands like that? And my mind's gone blank. But then there was kind of people like, the Stooges, and then there was the Velvet Underground. So did you start listening to stuff like that? Was it more the garage rock stuff?
Well, I started going record shopping. Like it all really hit like around when I was 15, and I started hitting like thrift stores and all the cool record stores, and I just started like buying up like all the cool 60s records. I had the Velvet Underground, I had the Electric Prunes, I had the Chocolate Watch Band, I had the Standells. I just, I got the Count Five. I got into like all those bands in their record stores, and I would just go through the bins like, oh my God, score. The Left Bank. I mean, kind of a wide variety. The Zombies, love the Zombies. But I got a huge record collection, and I just really got into it. And then I started. They had these cool dance clubs that you could go to, and they would play soul music, and you would dance and hang out. And I forgot what your question was.
Yes, that would.
Into it, that music.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you start thinking, actually, I want to, because I never went beyond just being an obsessive fan. When did you start thinking, actually, I want to learn to play an instrument or be in a band?
Well, I kind of always thought that in the back of my mind. I was 11 years old and my mom had bought me, I said, oh, I want a guitar. And she bought me this acoustic guitar and I was a jerk. And I said, I don't want an acoustic guitar, take it back. I want an electric guitar. So she took it back and I didn't get another guitar. So that was that. And I kind of had this look in the whole scene. I was kind of known in the whole 60s like garage scene in Orange County and LA and San Diego. And so I started getting to know a lot of people that were older than me and they would drive me around and that's where I got to know the bands and that's pretty much how I met Paula. So
Right.
it wasn't I had when I was young, I took piano lessons. So I knew a little piano. I played clarinet for 5 years as well. So I could read music and but I never really thought like I'm going to pursue, of course, in my dreamland. Yeah, I want to be in a band. This would be amazing. But I never thought I can like go play. And that's really ultimately what led me to getting in the Pandoras was because I knew Paula from the scene, just seeing her around and she liked how it looked.
Yes. Because it was interesting because in the 70s, and you mentioned Cheap Trick, because God, we all loved Live at Budokan. And there was also people like Pete Frampton Come Live. Actually, we used to love live albums, didn't we, in the 70s and 80s? We hate them now. But at the time, we used to sort of...
Careful live albums, to tell you the truth. It's not my favorite thing, but I mean, there's some cool ones. But
Yes. I don't know. When I was younger, I used to love the live album more than the studio record. But then there was those kind of classic rock. We call them classic rock because I guess they are now, aren't they? Like Boston, Cheap Trick, Pete Frampton, and Led Zeppelin, which was kind of more heavy rock. But then there was also that kind of mod scene, and you mentioned the Zombies, who were much more modish, and also a lot of that sort of garage rock kind of veered into that. So in the late 70s, there was that kind of rise of kind of going back into sort of that psychedelic mod sound. Did you like the fashion, or did you sort of think, God, I'd love to be in a band like that?
Okay, so this was like all in the 80s. Well, I can remember like when I got into the whole 60s thing, I thought, wow, just ultimately, I mean, I always had the same hairdo and everything, but I just thought the look was just so cool. Just like Ready Steady Go, Kathy McGowan, like that whole like the bob with the black hair and the eye makeup. I've always worn all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, wow, that's just so cool. So I really got into the whole like fashion of it. And I just it all went together, like the style, the fashion. It was like our life. I mean, we'd go from party to party and it was the music and the way that we looked. And then all the bands had cool equipment. They had like cool Vox equipment, Vox amps, Vox bass, guitars, keyboards, everything. And I just got really into this whole 60s garage scene where I could like the mod thing. At first I was riding on scooters. I had boyfriends with scooters and we'd ride all around town in Newport Beach and go to all the Revival movie theater houses and watch Quadrophenia and all the cool 60s movies.
Yes.
So that really came first. And I was a huge fan also of Madness, who we later got to actually play with. So it was like, oh, this is cool. So I was such a fan of them in high school. And each thing just went up like a little bit more, got a little more grungy, a little more garage from the mod thing, and it just kind of stepped up a little bit. And I loved that music. It was just my scene and my music.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because I had a brother who was 7 years older than me during that kind of 70s, and he was really into prog rock. So I got into Yes and Genesis and Wishbone Ash and Barclay James Harvest, which I realize is really uncool. But he was a bit kind of nerdy, and I kind of worshipped him. So I thought that was great. And then the punk thing sort of came along, but I was too young for punk. So then the early 80s, we had those kind of two-tone bands like The Beat and Madness and the Specials and the Selector. So there was that kind of two-tone world that came along, which was it wasn't so psychedelic, was it? It was more sort of mod. But you're right. Quadrophenia was a huge film, and it had a huge influence because we loved the Who, didn't we?
Oh yeah, yeah, the Who, absolutely.
Yes.
The Creation, I love the Creation.
The Creation, yes, that's right. And then, as the 80s progressed, because in LA, because this is a bit simplistic, right? But we had that kind of the indie pop sound, which was kind of be people like the Smiths and the Go-Betweens, and then bands like U2 and Big Country. So we had those kind of bands. And then
Yeah.
we had the mainstream charts that had people like Duran Duran and Sade and Spandau Ballet and all that kind of Trevor Horn production. But then in America, we got this kind of like the LA rock sound, didn't we? And Bruce Springsteen with Born in the USA started to appear probably about 86. So America at that stage did seem to have a sort of, everything was a bit Bon Jovi, wasn't it? And Guns N' Roses.
But yeah, I mean, the rocker stuff to, like, from what I remember, because I experienced it in Pandoras, because we went from garage, we can talk about that if you want, but went from like the garage pop thing into the really rock thing that really wasn't my style at all. But like when you talk about like the beat, Paul
Yeah.
Collins and all that, I can remember going to a show, seeing Paul Collins and the Beat open up for Lords of the New Church. So bands like Lords of the New Church, The Cure, like all the 80s bands. That's what was all like the big popular thing. And I did see Duran Duran. I saw Duran Duran. I saw Talk Talk. Like all those like 80s bands. Those were some of my first really big shows. My first show I ever saw actually was the Plume Souls. I was 15.
Yes. Well, Duran Duran, I guess, did you sort of see, was it Nick Rhodes who played keyboards and think, God, I want to be like Nick Rhodes one day?
No, not at all. But I went to a record signing at a record store, and John Taylor kissed me, and I was blown away. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. But no, and I had a whole poster signed by them. But I never thought, hey, I want to be a keyboardist in a band. It wasn't really, I just thought, in my mind, I thought, oh, I'd like to be a guitarist in a band, but I don't know how to play guitar. I wasn't playing keyboards then until Paula came to me. She kept coming to me. So in these 60s garage clubs that we used to hang out in, I was like 16, and she'd get all mad because she had started the Pandoras then, and she'd get all mad at the band, and she'd come up to me and she goes, do you know how to play an instrument? Like literally, like when they were playing a show, she'd walk over to me and say, do you know how to play? And I'm like, no, not really, no. And I was like kind of shy. I wasn't like, I'm kind of like a blabbermouth now, and I'm super social. But I think back then I was super naive and much more quiet. And I'm like, no, I don't. And there was just this one time she came up, and I was still in high school, and she said it to me, and my boyfriend standing next to me, he goes, she knows how to play piano. And she was, seriously? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And so she's like, well, do you want to try out? She gave me her number, and I'm like, all right, I'll try out. And in my house, my mom, she knew how to play organ and stuff. So Paula goes, okay, learn Hot Generation, because it was a song she wanted to do. They hadn't done it yet. And Want Need Love and High on a Cloud. Those were the three that she said, learn those. So my mom showed me on a pump organ how to play those. And she's like, okay, you're going to come up to LA and try out. And like I said, I'm still in high school. And I'm like, all right. And I go up to Rich Coffey's house. He was in the Unclaimed. He's the guitar player in the Unclaimed. And they had this Super Continental Vox keyboard. And it was the Unclaimed, which it ended up becoming mine. And it was Paula, my boyfriend, me, and Rich. And I played the songs. They were super simple. And then Paula goes, and we had this one other song called Haunted Beach Party, which was a little more involved keyboard. lead-ish type of stuff. And she's like, learn that too. And I did it. And she looked to me and she's like, do you want to be in the band? And I'm like, yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. That's like one of those kind of Hollywood films, really, isn't it? So you just yeah. So she got rid of the kind of Mark One. This sounds like Spinal Tap, doesn't it? Then you were Mark Two. Did it kind of feel as soon as you got together that there was something, the chemistry was there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she was a wild person. She was older than me. She started so young in the punk scene with like Kim Fowley, and she started a band when she was 14 called The Rage. Kim Fowley told her, go buy a bass. And she'd go watch the Runaways. And so she bought a bass, a Fender Mustang bass, and her first band was called The Rage. And she just knew everything. She was in that whole scene from such an early age. And we hit it off like immediately, and her and I became best friends. And uh, I learned so much from her. I was so young and so naive, and she was just like nobody else.
Well, yes, absolutely. No, I mean it's quite exciting because having done this show for so many years, I hadn't realised, especially the '80s bands, there's a kind of this kind of, and it might be with every band, but there's a kind of a 5-year narrative. Like people would get together, probably in their teens, and rehearse for about a year. And we had a DJ called John Peel in this country, and if John Peel gave you a play, that kind of gave everyone that little bit more kind of like, oh, you basically, it's like a board game. You go to the next level, and often you get a John Peel session where you go to the BBC and you record 4 songs.
I know all that stuff. Absolutely, all the records, John Peel sessions and stuff.
Yes. So you do that, and then you get the first album, things looking good for the band. And like Britain is so tiny, isn't it? Literally, it's tiny. But every town and city would have an indie night, probably on a Monday, Wednesday, or, early part of the week. And you'd get at least, 100, 200 people who turn up and see the band. So that was always good. It was when the bands get into that second album. And in the UK, the other thing I noticed, if anybody ever says, then we toured America, they'd always go, and then we came back and split up, because apparently tour in America is horrendous for British bands. I think they're a bit wimpy, really. But anyway, that's a narrative. But there's that honeymoon phase, isn't there? A period where everything is just like, it all just lines up, So did that have a similar vibe with you?
Absolutely. So when you say that, like I said, I tried out, and then she said that she already had a bass player that was going to be in the band, because the bass player of the original Pandoras quit, and she was getting rid of the keyboard player who I was replacing, and the drummer was deciding what to do, but she had already tried out Karen. And so basically the drummer did leave, and it ended up being Karen, me, Julie, and Paula. And literally, like a week after me being in the band, we went and recorded Hot Generation and You Don't Satisfy, which was like, here I am in high school, and I'm playing on a single for Bomp Records, because I had already been, when I was 15, going into Bomp Records and going in their warehouse buying cool records.
Yes.
And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is a dream come true. And then Rodney on the Rock was like the hugest supporter of us ever, and he started playing the single all the time, and we did some other songs for some comps like I Want My Caveman, and it all happened pretty fast. And then we went on tour of the East Coast too, like my first time ever going to the East Coast, and it was pretty exciting.
Yes, well, I would imagine, and that kind of youthful fun and yes, enthusiasm with slight naivety, but with arrogance as well. You need the both, don't you? Really, it's a complicated world. So, what was it like going into the studio and sort of having that experience from sort of very little to blimey, we're in the studio and creating probably some of your best or most famous songs?
I remember it was the middle of the night. So the engineer, his name was Gary Stern, and the studio was called Silvery Moon. It was right off of La Cienega Boulevard, which was near a little hot dog stand called Tail of the Pup. And the studio was in this alley. And he said, you're going to come in the middle of the night. So we show up in the middle of the night in this alley and we go in and it's like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And here we have all of our cool equipment, And I actually have a few pictures from that recording session. And Greg Shaw came in and I don't remember Greg doing a lot. I remember him standing there like this, just kind of like that. But like Gary did pretty much everything. But we just went in, we recorded the whole thing live. It was pretty quick. It happened all that night, those 2 songs. And then I remember we were finishing up, and then the Miracle Workers, this band, the Miracle Workers from Portland, Oregon, they were going to be on Bomb. And they come pulling up in the alley to say hi. So I was like, oh, okay, hi. But I that's what I remember from that night. And I remember, I don't remember how many takes it took or anything, but it was all pretty quick.
Wow, and did it sound, when you heard it back, did you think, wow, that's unbelievably brilliant? That's going to be a hit.
I remember going, thinking, I can't believe I did this. This is, it's cool. It was great. And I remember it was pretty easy. It wasn't like frustrated or anything like that. It all went pretty smoothly. And I remember we got like a special mix that we gave Rodney, because he likes to have his special stuff for him. And he just started playing it immediately. It was like, whoa, and both of those songs, both Hot Generation and You Don't Satisfy.
Yes, because I didn't realize Rodney is such a sort of iconic, he's the John Peel of LA, isn't he?
Really? Yeah, he is. Yeah, good comparison.
He is the man, really, which is quite interesting. So then when you got into doing the second album, because this is then you go on to Rhino Records, and this is where you start touring with some major people. How did you obviously weren't at high school anymore? How did that sort of experience start to develop? Because obviously, because most bands don't get off the launch pad, do they really? They just kind of go, oh, that was it. But then, you occasionally you just go for it and you think, blimey, we haven't got time to really think about it. Suddenly you're in the studio, you're on tour, there's all that kind of pressure and suddenly record labels. I just wondered how you coped with those next couple of years.
Like we were saying, everything happened pretty quickly, I would say, for me joining the band. And then we played a lot of shows, a lot of big shows. We started playing with a lot of huge people, and Nina Hagen was one of them that we became friends with and did a number of shows with her in the U.S. And it was all moving pretty quickly, I would say. And then we got courted by Epitaph Records, Brett Gurwitz. He decided he was going to start a record label called Epitaph Records. And I don't think he'd signed anybody yet. And possibly maybe the Vandals. And then Rhino started courting us. And Paula really kind of had a relationship with them because of like Gary Stewart and Bill Inglot. He had already produced earlier Pandoras stuff, and Paula, that was kind of like her whole music scene, where like what all the Rhino people. And so we, with our manager's help and stuff, we decided, which one would be better for us, and we decided on Rhino. We thought that would be a good place for us. And so we signed with them, and then that's right when we signed, that's when Kim Shattuck joined the band. And because Julie left the band, it wasn't working out for her. And I met Kim in a store, and Roy McDonald and I were shopping in a store, and I met Kim, and we were looking for a bass player, and I called her, and she came to my house and tried out. And the second me and her hung out that day, her and I became best friends. That was it. Her and I.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it was meant to be when her and I met each other. But So we signed with Rhino, and then we immediately just started coming up with, we made demos. We went in, Kim got in the band, we went into demos with Bill. We decided Bill Inglatt was going to be our producer. And then after deciding on the songs for the album from the demos, we just started going into different studios. The basic tracks we did an all-nighter. We we were told, whatever you guys do, you need to get a really good night's rest. Yeah, okay. You know, we of course did not listen, and each of us, Kim and I think Kim, I, and Karen had gone out, and then Paula went her own way. Paula went her own way, partied, totally, obnoxious party night, and someone else we knew was with her and had taken photos. And then Kim, me, and Karen, we went out to a show, and I think Nina was there, Nina Hagen, and we partied and partied and partied and partied all night. Where Kim got her arm stuck in a mailbox, I was laying in a gutter. There's photos of all this too that exist somewhere. So we didn't really listen. Because we were supposed to stay up for 24 hours and go in and record. So that was what we did the night before, going in and recording our basic tracks for Stop Pretending. And we showed up at the studio, and we did it. We went and recorded all night for like the next 24 hours, and we did pretty good, I think.
God, that's amazing. I think Black Sabbath did the same, well, they did the same on that first album. I think they'd been playing it for years, and they had a studio day, and they just said, well, we can just put it all down in a day. And it's like, oh, okay then. And that was it, the classic first album. So with your playing, were you sort of also having to do quite a bit of rehearsing and practicing to sort of, because you sort of sounded like you'd sort of gone from a few basic notes to sort of like, wow, I'm now in a band, I better learn some more musical kind of theory and sort of technique, I guess.
Okay, so I'm not a musician like that. I'm more of a musician that kind of just watches and learns. That's how I taught myself guitar as well, when Kim and I were decided that we wanted to have our own band. And we rehearsed it in the Pandoras and the Muffs. We rehearsed like all the time, like 5 days a week. So we had lots and lots and lots of rehearsals. So of course, I went from basic chords, although the Pandoras were really just that. Every band I've ever been in, we play simple. Everything's simple. I'm not a player like that in the instrument, and I don't care for that kind of stuff. It's just simple, solid, cool, with good melodies. That's really what I like. And I didn't go take lessons. No, I didn't. Just lots of practicing and learning and watching and touring. Touring really does so much. It makes your band so tight, and you experience so much.
Yes. And were you getting, as the 80s progressed, because things do change with each decade, were you getting any sort of, not pressure from outside? Well, you might have got a bit of pressure from outside, but I just wondered if there was people saying, oh, you need to go for this sound, or were you sticking with what you wanted to do? Were you being influenced by other people? Because, I mean, particularly with that decade, I'd noticed that things had gone from that really Trevor Horn production sound that we had on, people like Frankie Goes to Hollywood and ABC and Talk Talk especially. And then it's sort of like, that sounds quite dated now. And then you get that kind of more earthy sound. And then with it, in the UK, you had the dance scene with people like the Happy Mondays and Stone Roses and Primal Scream. So I just wondered, as things change. And also the other thing that happened in the UK, because I put indie pop, the Smiths down between, they lasted between 83 to 87, and they split up. And one of the other things that happened in the UK was that 87, 88, ecstasy comes along, and suddenly everyone starts kind of going, oh, we want to go to acid house parties and, take lots of drugs. And I just wondered if you were starting to also think, oh, we need to slightly, this is what the people, the kids are really into. I just wondered how that was kind of influencing the band.
So for the Pandoras, Paula was the songwriter, and none of us could write songs in the band. When we joined the band, that's that was kind of like the agreement that we all said that's not a problem. So But that being said, Paula writing the songs, we all came up with our own parts. So she would bring a song to us and say, you know, this is what I'm thinking. This is, you know, she might have a specific drum part or specific something, and she'd do that. But other than that, it was like, just do your thing, come up with it. And unfortunately, with Paula, fortunately, but then unfortunately, Paula like wrote amazing pop garage songs, really great melodic stuff. But she was really heavily influenced by what was popular at the time, which is odd because she was before her time, really doing what we did before anyone else was really doing it. But she also at the same time, what was popular and then who she was dating influenced her. So songs, you know, songs like we'll say Stop Pretending, she wrote that in a band called The Action Now. And she wrote that song, she had dated Peter Case from the Plimsouls, and that was she wrote that back then. And it's a great song. You know, she has like each kind of sections of songs. So when she started Pandoras, she was dating the singer Shelley Gans from the Unclaimed, very garage. And then we kind of went more pop. And then the hard rock thing, that was just bad. I think, you know, so much stuff happened. The Write Up period was great. That was such a great album. And then we got signed, we got courted by Elektra Records. And that really kind of changed a lot of things. We've always been our own people and did what we want, say what we want. No one's ever told us, like, you know, how to play something, how to do it, to dress or do anything. But I will say, when we did sign with Elektra, that changed a lot. We had the head of Elektra Records, his name was Peter Philbin, and I'm not a huge fan at all. And he came in and he started saying, you know, you guys, you need to take lessons. You need to dress a certain way. You need to lose weight. You need to, you know, all the horrendous things that you hear about. Yeah, that did happen. You need a clothes designer. All this stuff, and it was like kind of like, we're molding you into this thing, you know, so you can be this big hit. And they put all this money into us, you know, probably a couple $100,000 were spent on this recording. We got a producer, Bill Drescher. He had worked with Rick Springfield, and the unreleased album. We ended up. There were some switchovers with band members at that time. It was just, that whole period wasn't a great period. And then we switched over drummers, and Paula kept going more and more rock. She actually went from that kind of pop to more like a Bryan Adams type of thing.
Right.
Not really my style or Kim's style either. And there's still some good songs though. And then we didn't like Bill Drescher's production. It was just so 80s. Hearing it back now, it's funny. It is so 80s. And that was like 87. And so we brought in Arthur Barrow, who was the bass player of Frank Zappa. And Arthur is just a wonderful person. And he came in and he kind of rocked it up, because Paula starts going a little more AC/DC at this time. And not saying that Arthur was like AC/DC, because he wasn't, but just gave it a harder rock edge. And so he remixed it, and we recorded a new song, Run Down the Battery. And that is what was on the test pressing for the Elektra album. And, you know, it just wasn't a good time. We met some great people then, but it just, looking back at it, it was like really a really sad kind of period. Kim and I weren't so happy with it, and kind of like the start of, you know, but it's, you know, we thought it'd be okay. And then Sherry joined on drums, and we ended up getting dropped. And so we started a relationship with Restless Records, which was part of Enigma. And that's really when we started going more rock. and like I said before, this had nothing to do with Kim or me or Sherry at the time then, or Karen before, because that wasn't our personalities or our taste in music. But Paula, unfortunately, I think she thought that this was like what she needed to do to make it. And it was wrong, because all she needed to do was be herself and just do what she was already doing and what was doing. I really feel that that would have done it, but she kept changing. And I think, she never admitted that, but we knew. And it really just ended up getting to the point where she was listening to Whitesnake and just these horrid bands, just terrible, terrible bands. And she truly liked these bands. And the musical direction of the songs were just pretty bad, but we kept playing them, we kept doing our thing. And then that's when I started saying, I want to learn how to play guitar. And I did.
Because I'd forgotten Whitesnake. I'd slightly removed those images and the videos from my brain. But yes, Whitesnake was quite something, and ZZ Top, and we had Bon Jovi, didn't we? So I guess people were looking. Did you sort of, now looking back, was it kind of looking at the LA rock scene, thinking we need to be more Motorhead?
Well, I like Motorhead. Motorhead were cool. I saw them play. But she was really influenced by her boyfriend. She had boyfriend, then she had another boyfriend when we were like, after getting dropped, all that, she ended up with a super metalhead. And she just got into this just bad music. And Kim and I had our own little thing. We'd laugh at it, make fun of it. And I think like in a lot of like the videos you see on YouTube and stuff, you can see me and Kim go up talking to each other. We're laughing, we're making fun of the situation because we hated it. And I just don't think she really knew what she wanted. And I think she so badly wanted to make it that the LA strip scene stuff became popular. It was so gross. It was just so not like, I'm not putting down those people at all. That's great. The music that they made, they're happy. I'm not gonna put anyone down. But certainly not my thing, or really what our band had started off as.
Yes, I know. It is quite tricky, isn't it, being an artist? I guess it is that thing of sticking with what you want to do, or being very led. Because it was interesting, because David Bowie had been my, like my first single, thank God for that, and first album, and I was always obsessed with Bowie, which was quite lucky. It could have been someone else. But anyway, what I noticed, though I really thought he was amazing, that in the 80s, he did Let's Dance, which was kind of all right. Then he did two really kind of bad albums. And I sort of thought about them, and I realized that for the once in his life, he kind of, instead of just thinking, oh, this is what I want to do, it's almost like he looked around going, what do people want? And I'll give them that. And it's like, oh dear, that's really bad. And then he did Tin Machine, as if to say, right, I'm going to go back to just do what I want to do, get that out of my system, and then continue. And then, then he just did whatever. And it was like, some of it was great, some of it was poor. But it wasn't like that 80s stuff, which was like, God, that's just bad. It was all right, but it did seem like a lot of artists got a little bit lost in the 80s, kind of thinking they want this kind of producer and this sort of sound, and it sounds so dated now as well. So and the videos of Whitesnake, my God.
Yeah, I know. There's pictures of Paula in her Whitesnake shirt. But no, and ultimately what ended up happening was like, the story goes, I am the longest person that's ever played with Paula in her career. And she decided that she didn't want keyboards anymore. This is right in the end, because she thought, once again, she could make it in the rock thing, and the keyboards weren't going to be part of it. And for me playing guitar, I wasn't a lead guitar player. I'm still not. I'm a rhythm guitar player. I can play leads. But I was so new. I had just that whole last year, I would come up and play like a song or two with the Pandoras during our show. But I wasn't good enough to like be the good lead, a guitar player. So she said, that she didn't need me in the band anymore. So at at the time, Kim and I, we had already been practicing to have our new band. We'd already been doing that for at least like 6-8 months, learning some of Kim's songs and jamming before Pandoras practices. So it was like, okay, you know, it was really sad. It was like breaking up with a boyfriend, and Kim stayed because we were supposed to go to Europe. So she's like, I'm gonna stay and uh, just wait it out to get to Europe, and then you know leave. And her and I are gonna do our band. We didn't have the name the Muffs yet, but we were already, like I said, practicing. And so that happened, and then Kim did a couple shows still with the band, and Paula canceled the tour. Kim was like, see ya. And Sherry did one more show, and that was it. They all, everybody left. The other guitar player kind of stayed with Paula, but they weren't doing anything. And so Paula, during that period, that's when Kim and I started the Muffs and did that and started putting out singles and going on tour. Paula started getting ready to, you know, she was kind of going in a more pop direction. You kind of seeing like maybe, you know, changing again. And that's when she died. So who knows what she would have done? Who knows, you know, because at that time, then all of a sudden Nirvana, like that's what we say, what would Paula be doing? Would she have done like the Nirvana thing next? Because she'd always jump on like the thing just a little bit after though. Except for the garage thing, which she was so before her time.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, really, because actually, I think because I remember in the UK there was like, you know, like that ecstasy scene with those kind of dance bands, and then you had Seattle came in, and that slightly changed things. There was always like these other bands who just did their stuff, but then we had Britpop, which came about 92, 93, and actually probably the Pandoras would have been perfect for that. But then the Muffs would have just picked up on that kind of going back to basic, kind of like all these bands like Oasis and Blur were sounding like the Beatles or the Kinks, and you know, sort of discovering that 60s kind of vibe again, really.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't, you know, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, but then, you know, because mostly at that stage, most people think I've just had enough with music. I've just, you know, it's been a bit tricky, you know, lots of emotional relationship stuff, and you know, mostly people don't make a huge amount of money, and they think I've just got to get another. I've got to sort of learn to pay the rent now and get a job. But you then start another band, which is very energetic of you.
Yeah, I mean, really, like the whole reason that Kim and I did that was because we said we want to do our own thing. You know, the music had gotten so bad, it wasn't our thing. We weren't doing what we wanted to do. So we just said we want to play our instruments. I wanted to play guitar. She wanted to play guitar. She wanted to sing. We said, let's write songs. Let's do exactly what we want, our style of music, and that's what we did. And it was awesome. It was,
Yes.
you know, it was exactly what we wanted to do. And I think Paula, she came to a couple of our shows, and you know, I think she saw that we were kind of getting popular and stuff, and she, you know, I'm sure it probably affected her a little bit. And I will say, right before she died, she did call me and she said how proud of me she was. She was, you know, it was a really nice conversation. It was about a week, 2 weeks before. And she just said, you know, everything that I've done and me playing guitar and all that kind of stuff, that she was really, really proud of me.
Which is amazing, really. That's such a nice thing to say.
Oh no, I mean, you know, she was my family. All those girls, they're my family. I've known, you know, they'll
But
always be with me.
so it must be quite amazing because you've worked, you know, you've had to deal with some really strong characters, and having Paula and Kim, they're quite
Oh yeah.
amazing people to have you know, to be on the same planet and to have been in a band with both of them is quite some journey, isn't it?
Absolutely, total. I pick people like that in my life. Those are like the people that I'm attracted to. Are these different, unique people that might not be like everybody else. that are just really outspoken. I'm the same way. I'm not afraid of anybody or anything. I'm real. I just say it, how I see it and how I feel. And, I kind of align myself with people like that. And another thing is, I really I'm attracted to people with really like sick sense of humor. Um, just Yeah, no, I've always had big personalities.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. So,
along with me
when
for
you
sure.
started the Muffs, did that feel like, wow, a big weight had dropped off from the Pandoras and the way that kind of slightly got into a bit of a messy, like cul-de-sac of kind of, this isn't quite us, to suddenly think, oh my God, this is amazing. We've kind of like kind of a second wind, really.
Oh yeah, it was so exciting. It was so wonderful, and it was in the very beginning. We just started. We kind of used the thing that Kim and I had been in Pandora's. So I would call up clubs, and I was like the band booker, and say, hey, we want to play a show. We're in the Pandoras. Well, can we come play? And they're like, yeah. And so we booked our first West Coast tour, and we were so proud of ourselves. And then through connections of people that we knew, we got like Long Gone John, and then Bruce Milne from A Go Go Records, Long Gone John from Sympathy, and then also Sub Pop. And we just asked them. I asked them. I'm like, can we do a single? And like, yeah, well, I want to do it. So like those guys did it. And then when we went up on our first West Coast tour, we did the Sub Pop single, and then we got asked to do a lot of comps as well, like the Rock and Roll Girl and Brand New Chevy, different songs like that are on various different comps. But it was so refreshing, new. I can remember it. We were so excited, and we would go make flyers. I have tons of old flyers. I have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of photos and like original like the stuff we would do when we would go make the flyers, the ideas, like the stuff like taped up on it, and just fun stuff.
Yes, and then because your debut album, that does capture a certain kind of groovy vibe, but also you had signed to a major label as well, so things must have moved very fast for you.
It did. It was, we just started playing a lot of shows, and then we got some interest. And this guy, Dave Katz Nelson, he started coming to see us play, and then he worked at Warner Brothers. And then this other guy, Rob Cavallo, also worked at Warner Brothers. So Dave said, hey, Rob, you want to come see them? Maybe we could do this together. At the time, Dave had just signed Mudhoney to Warner Brothers. And so Dave and Rob both approached us then as like a co-signing type of thing. We had two A&R guys and said, let's do a demo deal. And it's funny because I just hung out with Rob Cavallo this last month, and he was talking about that. And he was talking about like taking our demo tape to Lenny Waronker and playing it for all like the big dudes and girls, women at Warner Brothers, and like hearing it and like their like the reactions to like hearing like I forget the songs, but Lucky Guy was one, and they were just blown away. And they're like, when are we gonna sign them? But it was so cool hearing like the stories that Rob remembered from it. But yeah, it was really exciting. It was like bam, 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 bam. Here we signed a demo deal. We did the demo deal. We got signed, and then it was like, okay, we're gonna sign you to the record label, and then go in and
Yes,
do an album.
it was a perfect time because there was a band in the UK called Lush who captured a certain, I think they were like quite a similar looking lineup. You both had the quite similar image. So you did capture a certain zeitgeist at this point, didn't you? Because it was like the Seattle scene had slightly, like every scene, you realize that after 2 years, it's like, oh dear, that's getting a bit tragic. And we'd had enough of that kind of, I mean, when you see those bands from the 90s, the early 90s on sort of little clips on Instagram, you know, you think, oh God, I can't remember. I didn't realize they all look the same. Those blokes with the long hair, cut off jeans, talking about their kind of,
Yeah, right? They're totally good.
they've all got the same voice. They've all got the grungy sound. They're all doing the same pose. And you're thinking, oh God, I hadn't quite picked that up. But now looking at it 20 years later, you think, geezy, greasy. And they're all talking about their sort of, broken homes and problems with their father and all that kind of stuff, and it's all like a Jack Daniels in one hand and the t-shirt and, from Soundgarden to Pearl Jam, it's like, gee,
Yeah.
they kind of all were the same band. And then, we got this kind of Britpop sound, and the Muffs really had that kind of quality of being like, oh, this is much more kind of less kind of dense and a bit more fun. So they must have felt, again, quite a honeymoon phase. But then how come you left the band?
Well, I'm not going to go completely all into that, but um, so I'll just say we put out the album, we toured, and then there were some changes. Chris left, Jim Spisa came in, and then Roy McDonald came in, who we originally wanted in the band. And so then the late summer of I was gonna say 84 of 94. It was weird. It was weird between Kim and I, and I mean, what I'll say is I did not want to leave. But that's what I will say about it. It wasn't really my choice. It wasn't what I wanted.
Yes.
It's such a horrible thing that it happened. It should have never happened, because Kim and I absolutely loved each other and were each other's best friends. No other friend in the world have either of us ever had. And at the time that happened, and I have integrity, and I left. So I'll leave it at that.
Sure.
And we didn't speak for a lot of years. We actually didn't see each other in person for 17 years. We wasted 17 years of our life because of this. And it's really horrible. We were meant to be back together. We were meant to always be together. We were meant to make music together. And, I hope other people don't go through that. Just, you have to just kind of let things go and forgive and move on.
Yes.
So we were fortunate enough to reconnect. In the meantime, obviously the Muffs went on and did put out a lot of records. And then at the time I joined the Leaving Trains, and I played with the Leaving Trains for 10 years. And then I also did another band of my own called Pointy Kitty for probably about three or 4 years as well.
My God, but, your perseverance is quite extraordinary. I mean, seriously, I mean, most people just think, they get sort of basically that, I can't do this anymore emotionally. But you obviously have something quite strong there.
I don't ever want to stop doing it, ever, ever, ever. And when Kim and I reconnected in 2000 and 2009, her and I reconnected, and then actually saw each other face to face in 2011. And we went out to lunch, and it was insane. It was like we cried and cried and cried and hugged each other, and she said she was sorry, and it was, it just should have never happened. And so from that day forward, we moved on, and we reformed the Pandoras, and then the Muffs, and then I reconnected with Ronnie and Roy as well. And they're all my family. They're all part of my musical family and my world. And then so Kim and I did that, and then through her being sick, we created another band called the Coolies to raise money for ALS. And, you know, I spent every day with her through her illness for 2 years straight, up until, you know, with her death. I was with her when she died. So, um, you know, it's amazing to be able to have a partner like us. I call her my musical, my BFF and musical soulmate.
Yes, God, that's quite a heavy one, though, isn't it? Jeezy queasy. That's quite to go through that. But I guess I'm guessing here, but you know, if that hadn't been for that experience of reconnecting and sort of, I mean, it's a bit of a corny term, but kind of healing, that would have felt really difficult to have continued after her death, I guess.
That, you know, I mean, it was just meant to be the way that what happened. You know, in the end, and we said that, you know, we had so much time to talk about. Um, it was horrific what she went through with ALS, but I feel so fortunate to have been able to make all these new memories with her, even like in the worst part of, like, you know, life, going through that. Her and I made incredible new memories that will never leave me, and, you know, that she took with her. So, you know, I guess it was all supposed to be that way, and her and I were supposed to be there with each other, and I made a promise to her that I would hold her hand till the end, and I did.
Yes, well, quite. God, that's quite, yeah, at least, I mean, it gives you some way of sort of being able to sort of connect to that, those kind of feelings that happened before then. God, that's such a story, isn't it, really? But
And
it's often what's often quite tricky though, when you have those kind of relationships, it's not feeling like the victim, because if you feel like the victim, you can never let go of situations, I think. So
yeah,
then,
you're right. You're right. And you're right. And neither of us were a victim. The thing was, her and I, we had so much time to talk about it. And we said to each other, this shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have had this happen in our relationship, because there was no other for each of us in anything, in anything. And her and I have the same sense of humor, just, oh my God, amazing stuff. And, you know, just, we cried together, said we were sorry to each other for the things that upset each other, and that had happened. And, yeah, I think in life you gotta kind of roll with it, and not be vindictive, and let things like that bother you. You gotta kind of like just take it and go with it and be strong, and do what you want, and just move forward.
yes, this is good. But then, which is kind of quite magical, I have to say, your career is quite amazing. Because it's like not so many, I hardly met anybody who's managed to get into so many musical scenes and bands and have so much emotion. And frankly, I can't believe you could do it all. But then in 2014, you kind of again reformed the Pandoras and sort of record full songs in the Green Day studio, which it must have felt like at least you're not just going back all the time, but you're actually creating something new. Must have felt quite a relief.
Sorry, my son's making this in the kitchen, being noisy. Yeah, once again, that the same thing. So we said, you know what, this is fun. But another thing, never did we ever think we would reform the Pandoras, you know, without Paula, first of all. But then, like, that we would ever be playing Pandora songs again. And then we said, you know what, let's do it. This is fun. We're gonna pick out the songs, like all the cool songs that we love, the ones we loved, ones that we always wanted to record, didn't get to record, and covers that we did. And, you know, we were fortunate enough to be able to record in Green Day studio. We actually did a whole 7-song EP there, but at 2 different trips, or within like a year of each other. But yeah, the same thing. It was just same, like, exciting type of thing. And then, also that we said, let's start touring. Let's, you know, here, which was really cool for me to like be able to doing this, because I had kids, and I wasn't doing that much then, maybe a little bit here and there, but all of a sudden it was like, whoa, here I am doing this again in the Pandoras, and I'm on tour in Europe. So I dug it.
Yes, and there is kind of, I mean, without it being nostalgia journey, but there is always that kind of interest in bands from the past, isn't there? And mainly because sometimes when you're doing something, especially in your youth, you don't really appreciate it because you just think that's what it happens. And then suddenly that moves on. You think, oh my God, it's gone. We can't,
Yeah.
I wished I'd appreciated it more at the time. But then to be able to have that experience later on sometimes means that you kind of appreciate it. And also the fan and new people as well can come and watch you. So that must have felt quite nice being able to sort of reconnect with both the band, the original band members that were left, as well as kind of connecting with your fans and seeing new people.
Oh, I will tell you, it was just the greatest feeling. All of us hanging out like that, practicing all the time again, learning the songs again, and then going, to Europe because we never got to play Europe in the Pandoras, and people like telling us, I waited 30 years to hear, What Need Love and Hot Generation and all these songs, and we played sold out shows, and it was we headlined the Fuzzville thing in Spain, in Benidorm, Spain, and it was incredible, and it meant so much to us, and we felt so fortunate that we were given the opportunity to be able to go there for 3 weeks and do that. The people that never got to see us, and then there's other people that have been lifelong fans that never got to see us back in the day, and we played a number of shows in Minneapolis and New York and around town here and stuff. So and our last show was a Nuggets Festival show that we played with the Shadows of Night with Jimmy Shones. That
Excellent.
was the last ever Pandora show.
Yes. So going vaguely forward, if we can, I mean, what would your hope? What are you hoping for the next year or two? It's hard to describe. Yes, I just wondered if there was any projects you're working on at the moment.
Yeah, I am working on stuff. So I do play keyboards in Josie Cotton's touring band. So I did um, a show in Minneapolis with her, and then we had during the pandemic we were supposed to do an East Coast tour, which will be rescheduled. And then I don't play all the live shows with her here in LA, but I had a number of shows that I was going to play with her. Most recently, we were going to do one in December with the former members of Oingo Boingo, like a drive-in
Yes.
show, but it got rescheduled as well. So there's that stuff coming up, and then Palmyra and I are continuing on the Coolies, which is the band that Kim and I created while Kim was sick to raise money for ALS, and we're going to continue. We're going to put out another EP, a couple more EPs, and raise money for ALS. And we have music. The three of us all talked about it, and we have songs that we're writing with Kim. She left us stuff, and everybody will see. Little Steven's going to put it out on Wicked Cool Records.
Oh,
and
excellent.
So we're really looking forward to it. So that's in the future. And then I've also, no one really knows this, but I guess I'll just say it. I've been working with another Wicked Cool artist. His name's Ryan Hamilton. So we have like a project that will come out in the future as well.
Excellent.
There's good things.
So the love of music is still with you.
Oh yeah, and let me say also, I just love Vox. I have a rah Vox. I endorse Vox. I have a beautiful Vox Bobcat guitar, and I just got an EC30 Vox amp. So I continue playing my Vox stuff. I started off with a Vox Super Continental keyboard, and I'm still playing them, and I'm doing some stuff for them as well.
Excellent. Well, that's fantastic. So look, if you could have said something to your 16 or 18-year-old self starting out with all the experience, and my God, you've had so much. I mean, is there any sort of advice you would love to have whispered in their ear, or just some sort of sagely kind of wisdom that you think, God, I'll just tell you this. You might ignore it, which is obviously probably people would, but you just think, yeah, this is something I've really learned from being on this earth.
I mean, really, the thing that I've learned is most importantly, and I teach my children this as well, is you know what? You got to be yourself. You got to listen to yourself, nobody else. Do what you feel is right. It doesn't matter if other people don't agree with it. Be true to your musical sense, to your style, to your personality, and I'm a big person that believes in saying how you feel. I feel that is so important. I'm not going to go through life not letting people know how I feel about them, because life is so incredibly short. I feel like I've obviously had two wonderful friends die way too young, and I think laughing and not taking things so seriously is really really so important. You have to have a sense of humor, and I mean, those are really like my life lessons. I'm just like kind of me. I'm like a giant kid. My kids always tell me to grow up, and I just kind of don't change. I just kind of think I'll always be like me.
Well, that's good. Well, it's great that you've gone through so much and haven't sort of ended up feeling a bit, some people, can get a bit, bitter or a bit kind of, just a bit angry, a bit edgy, just because things have happened, but they haven't sort of processed it and let kind of go of it. So they're still a bit, I don't know about damage, but it's sort of, you must have met people you think, you need to chill out.
Oh God, yeah. See, I don't live my life like that. I live it like I feel so fortunate and honored for the people that have been in my life and been a part of like this opportunity and what I've been given. And friends, I've met so many wonderful friends. I mean, I'm like, I'm just real, and I just am a sentimental person, and yeah, no bitterness. Where's bitterness gonna get you? Where's hate gonna get you? It's horrible things happen, and we're all lucky to be here. It's just not the way to live your life.
This is true. This is very true. And that, dear listener, is the end of the interview. And that was me in conversation with Melanie Vammen, keyboard player. I know it was a bit of a pause there. Keyboard player with the Pandoras and also guitarist, and has been in, well, we've just been talking about it, haven't we? The Muffs as well. Anyway, look, that's the end of the interview. This has been David Eastaugh, the C86 Show. If you want to contact me, you can on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, do C86 Show. Also, I've been doing interviews for many years, and so any indie band from the 80s, check it out. I should have, I probably would have interviewed them. So, just go to Spotify, iTunes and Podbean, C86 Show. It's all good. Anyway, look, have a great week. Stay safe and all that malarkey. Tune in again. I will have more guests, I'm sure.